Hi you guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today is going to be a bit of a different one. I told you guys in my last vlog that I've been craving doing more sit down videos lately. I just miss getting on here like this and just talking to you guys about something. So that's what we're doing today. It feels so good. Like, it feels right. I'm sitting in my bedroom. I don't know why I've actually never filmed here. The light is a little bit, like, I'm trying to figure it out because my only windows are on this side, so I'm trying to like balance the light out. But this is actually a really nice background, so I feel like I want to film in this setting more. Let me know if you guys like it. On a video I posted about a month ago, the top comment ended up being a video request, and a lot of you guys thumbs it up, so I wanted to read it out loud. Can I make a video request to do a sit down talk about how you've made the transition from toxic relationship to being single to finding happiness? I'm struggling since my breakup with my toxic ex 2 months ago. I thought this was a really good video idea, so thank you so much to the person who commented this and everyone who thumbs it up as well to just like make it come to my attention. So we're gonna be going a little bit deep in this video today, which I haven't done on YouTube in quite a while, but I do think that a video like this would have been really helpful for me a few years back. If I can make this video to provide some insight on my experience to hopefully help some of you guys that may be going through this time or may experience this in your life, then I want to make this video. This video is kind of a follow-up, almost like a part 2 to the video that I made almost 2 years ago, which was called My Toxic Relationship and How I Left. I know a lot of you guys have seen that video, probably if you're some of my viewers, but if you're coming to this video and you haven't seen that one, I definitely recommend watching that first. In that video, I talked about my experience in a toxic cycle, in a toxic romantic relationship, and I also talked about how I left that and some tips that I had for anyone that was going through a similar situation. So I'll link that video up here in the cards, and I'll link it as like the first video link in the description box down below. So what I want to talk about in this video is more once you have made that decision to leave a bad relationship, what does that look like? What are some tips and also just real life struggles that you may encounter leaving something like that? So the first phase you're gonna go through is the adjustment period. Your brain is confused. You are fresh out of this relationship. And I want you guys to know, anyone that has been through this, it is extremely common, and that's something that I actually learned when I uploaded my past video discussing my experiences, how many of my own viewers and people that stumbled across that video related to my experience. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that, to hear how many people have these similar situations happen to them in their life and just need that support. There is a period after a breakup where your brain is actually not functioning, what's the word? Like, not that it's not functioning normally, but it's almost not. Your brain is trying to adjust when you go from being with somebody every day, seeing somebody every day, potentially living with this person, to making a decision to cut that off. Granted, you have made that decision to cut that off and break up and decide to move forward. Your brain actually has to take a few weeks, if not months, to adjust to not talking to that person every day, to not seeing that person and physically being around them all the time. And it is a transitional period that actually takes, it's very difficult. Also, just beginning that mourning period, grieving the relationship, mourning that person and that time that you spent with them. It actually takes on average 3 months for the average person to start feeling better after a breakup. 3 months just on average to start feeling better. Think about that. That's a long time. This time is the hardest. This time is when you are going to be probably tempted to go back to that person, to continue the same patterns that you may have already been trying to break for years or months or however long. I know that's exactly how I felt. I was extremely confused. I actually didn't know what to do with myself for a really long time right after ending a relationship like this a few years ago, and I made mistakes. I don't think I blocked communication or stopped communication initially. That was a huge mistake that I look back and I'm like, I really wish I had. But I will say, everyone always tells you in these videos, everyone always tells you you have to completely stop communication. And I will tell you, yes, I fully agree with that, but initially stopping that communication and initially like fresh out of a breakup, it is so difficult to do because you are still so intertwined in that person's life. Now, after a breakup of a toxic relationship, it's gonna be even that much harder because your emotions are all out of whack. You are just feeling these highs and lows every day, and you don't really know how to be without this person. And the idea of cutting off communication with them almost seems impossible. At least that's how it was for me. And I will say, looking back, I wish I was strong enough to fully stop communicating right when I made that decision, because I did know it was right. I never second guessed my decision. Once I knew I was done, I knew I was done. But that doesn't mean that it was easy for me or easy for anyone to cut that person out of your life and just, you know what I mean? Like a clean cut. That is, I believe, one of the hardest things to do. And if you are able to do that, more power to you. I respect you so much, because I think that jumpstarts the healing process. But I want to speak on being gentle to yourself at this time, because especially very soon after a breakup, like, you're just gonna make mistakes. I did. You're gonna text this person and think that you guys can catch up or something. You're gonna think that you can maybe hang out with this person as friends. I mean, just all these crazy ideas that you'll invent in your head so you can see that person and potentially begin that cycle again, which you work so hard to get out of. So it is a period of temptation of going back to that. So be gentle on yourself. If you see that person, if you interact with that person, if you don't decide to immediately block them and delete them on all social media, be gentle with yourself. But I will tell you that looking back, I absolutely regret any sort of communication post breakup. I do not think that any of it was beneficial to my future. I don't think any of it was helpful. I don't think any of it did me any good. But at the time, I wasn't strong enough to completely cut that person out of my life at that time. You are so valid in where you are and what you are able to do, because you are already making so much progress and so many steps, and it does take time to be able to adjust to a life without that person. If you find yourself in a situation like me where you enter a trying to be friends period with your ex, I just want to warn you and tell you right now, I almost guarantee you will look back on that in 6 months, a year, a few years, and wonder why you thought that was even possible. I personally knew I could never be friends with my ex. I knew we did not have that relationship. We were never friends before we dated. Why could we just suddenly go from being in a romantic relationship that was very unhealthy to being friends? It's not possible. Now, I do think that sometimes people can break up in years or many months down the line, they can become friends. I'm not saying that it's not possible. However, I personally would not recommend ever being friends with anybody that you know that you were in a toxic cycle with. It brings up a lot of old feelings, and it will, even though, it might be years down the line and you think that you have healed and been able to move forward enough, there will be things that come up. That person, people don't change that much. People change and improve themselves, but this is not going to be a different person, okay? Doing that absolutely derailed me on my healing process. It distracted me from the idea of dating other people or just being alone and actually being single. It was a distraction from truly being by myself. It was confusing because I knew I didn't want to get back together, but we were still interacting from time to time. And truly looking back, it had no positive outcomes. So I want you to know, if you're out there in this phase or considering thinking that you could be friends with somebody who you've hurt and has also hurt you so tremendously in these ways, I would strongly recommend against it. You can try it for yourself, but it's not gonna work. It's not gonna make you feel better. It might be a temporary thing that you think is helping you. Looking back, once again, I wish I was strong enough to never have thought that that was something that could be possible for us. Shortly after this, I finally entered the phase of my healing where I was very happy being alone. I was excited about being single. I really enjoyed that period of being alone every day. It was so healing for me, and it was a lot of time to think and reflect. So I challenge you guys, once you do kind of move past the initial it's very fresh stage, I challenge you guys to just sit with being alone and actually experience what it is like to be single and not distracted with, I mean, of course we'll always be distracted by the idea of like dating and the potential of dating, but I didn't even want to entertain anyone for a really long time. I just was like, nope, I'm not ready. I know I'm not ready. There's no point. And that was a really nice period. I kept busy, even initially after my breakup. I think that's something too important to mention that was very helpful for me and my healing was right off the bat, I threw myself into activities. I had all this freaking free time on my hand. My partner wasn't coming over every night like they were for 3 years, you know? I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was like, it was like beginning of winter, which is, you know, that kind of like depressing period when it gets dark earlier and you just have these nights to yourself. So I am with you if you're going through this in the fall winter time, because I feel like it's a little easier to be like crazy and, you know, whatever, distracted in the summertime. In the winter, that shit just hits you in the face and you're like, I'm just here alone every night with my own thoughts in the dark, and it's fucking hard. So I threw myself into my friendships. I threw myself into travel, and I went to a ton of concerts. I started going to the gym like all the time. Before that, I would go occasionally. I just was like, I want to try out these new workout classes, and you have to do that stuff. I would get excited about the littlest things. I would get excited about like, ooh, what am I gonna cook for myself, just myself for dinner tonight? Like, once you're able to come out of that initial like grieving and everything like that, throw yourself into activities, throw yourself into making yourself a better you, your friendships, traveling, just everything that you can like say yes to that you think would be good for you, say yes to it. Meeting new people, maybe getting a new part-time job or starting a side hustle, or just keeping yourself busy, even if it's just like watching YouTube videos. FaceTiming a friend, keep yourself busy with those things that are like good for you and good for your brain and good for your mind. The next period after this I kind of found myself in was the reflecting on that relationship period. Now I had kind of been doing this the entire, you know, the entire healing period, the entire post breakup period, but sometimes you just don't fully like sit with and think about the things that you were accepting and why they may have occurred in your life, or just thinking about the person that you were in that relationship. And I think even though it's really painful and it's really hard to do, even for me years out of this relationship, it is very painful if I actually really get deep and think about the things that I was accepting for myself for so long. But it's a really important part of the healing process, and you don't need to do it alone. I mean, yes, sitting with yourself and reflecting on patterns, reflecting on how you ended up for so long in this cycle and what you accepted for yourself and the things that you allowed, the red flags, right? Even if you have to like write it all down, write it out, you know, journaling, whatever it is that works for you. For me, something that was so cathartic was like making that video that I made and just talking about it and venting, and whoever it is that you need to vent to. I mean, your friends, your mom, your sister, your family, whoever it is. Of course, like at a certain point, you know, people don't want to hear about your breakup shit anymore. So at a certain point, if you're still finding that you really need to like unpack this and vent more, I would definitely look into getting therapy, because I think that's a lot of times we just can't do this alone. A lot of times we shouldn't do it alone, and depending on what happened in the relationship, you just might want to talk to somebody. All right, now I am getting into the period where I decided that I wanted to dip my toes in dating again. I will say I had absolutely no desire to even like, I didn't want anything that had to do with like anything thinking of dating. Like, no, I would have, you know, fun and like go out, nights with friends and stuff post breakup, because you have to have that. I think you have to have those like silly nights where you're newly single and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't have anyone to like come home to and report to, and you have to have those like fun nights, right? But I was not interested in a relationship with anyone. I was not trying to date. I wasn't going on any dates. I was really enjoying being alone. It was so nice to like really fully experience that. So this time period is going to be completely different for everyone, which of course I'm sure you could guess that. For me, I think about 6 months after, or no, maybe 4. It really wasn't that long. It was like 4 or 5 months post breakup that I was like, I think I'm ready to like dip my toes in again. Not, like I said, not looking for a relationship, but just like I wanted to see what the apps were like after, you know, 3 years. I wanted to see who was out there and in my city, because I had never explored that before. It was fun for a while. Like it was fun for a few months. I went on some first dates. I went on some second dates. I went on a handful of dates with a couple different guys, and it was fun to just get back out there and like see what was out there. Like I said, I wasn't really looking for anything serious, but at the same time, like I was looking for genuine connections. Also, this is kind of personal, but I wanted to just touch on like how I knew I was ready to sleep with someone and be intimate with someone again for the first time, because that was something that I had never really, like I had never been in a relationship that was as long as my past one. And after it, I was like, no, there is no way. I am not ready to like be intimate with anyone. I don't want to. I had absolutely no desire. I couldn't even think about it. I was like, I just have been with one person for the past like 3 years or whatever. I can't even like imagine being with someone else intimately. And I will tell you, that period is, if you experience it or if you don't, like if you get out of a breakup and you're like, oh my God, I wanna be intimate with someone else just to like get it out of my system. I know a lot of people experience that. Both experiences are completely normal, but I will say that phase ended for me, and I just knew when I was ready, and I was like, okay, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel weird about it. But how I actually really healed is finally deciding to cut off all communication with my ex. It took me a long time to do this. We didn't talk often, but occasionally I would slip up. I would get drunk and text him. I would think that, oh, maybe we should like go out to lunch and catch up. I would think that these things like would help me, and it just never did. Once we actually had no communication, like moving forward for a very, very extended period of time, using the metaphor, it closed the door. Like it actually felt like a door closed, and it was just like, we're not opening it again. Like I respect myself too much to open that door again. I know where it leads. I know it's not going to benefit me, and it took me a really long time, like I said, to actually do that. I wish I could have done it sooner, but I'm just being honest, because I think a lot of people kind of sugarcoat this type of advice, and they're like, you just have to cut it off initially, right after breakup. You can never talk to them again. And it's like, oh my God, I wish I could have fucking done that, but I was not strong enough. Like, who actually is able to do that? Oh my gosh, that's amazing if you are, but it's not exactly realistic. So I just want to be honest. I was no longer attracted to this person. Thank God. Once you hit that point where you get the ick for your ex, oh my gosh, I feel like it's so hard to go back. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean like, once you hit that point of like, I'm actually not attracted to you anymore, I miss nothing about that, I would not go back to that. Once you hit that point where you are moving forward and you're like, I don't accept that for myself anymore. Once you get there and you respect yourself that much, I believe there's no going back. In that moment for me, like it wasn't just like a moment, you know what I mean? But like allowing that space and that time to be able to have that feeling, oh my gosh, like you will never go back once you finally feel that. And that is such a victory, to be able to get to that point in your healing process where you miss nothing about that relationship and that person, and you were able to like look at it as an outside looking in on the relationship and being like, who the fuck was I? Like who was that girl? At least that's how I feel about myself. I don't even recognize the person that I was for so long, and sometimes it makes me sad, but then sometimes it's like, look at the growth I've like experienced. Look at how far I've come since I was there, and like I never even knew. Sorry. But truly, like reflecting on that and just realizing how happy you can be, and how like knowing where I'm at now, thinking of like 3 years ago where I was at, it was so worth every second of it being hard and questioning myself and falling back and the temptation and everything like that. It was worth all of it, because once I got to that point, I was never gonna go back. There's this quote that I like made my phone background right after like my breakup when I was like unwell, and I think it was basically like, you will never heal by going back to what broke you. It was like along those lines. It's like really fucking deep, but it's kind of like, oh my god, but it's actually fucking true. It's really, at its bare minimum, it is so true. You will never heal by going back to what broke you. All right, so now I want to talk about how did I start forming healthy connections and the journey to that, because it was not instant. Initially, like when I was dating again, I kind of found myself in some situationships that I definitely saw red flags. I wanted to make the best of the situation and think the best of the person, but looking back, it was just, I knew there was those red flags, and it was still hard for me to like cut it off. You would think after all that I've been through, I've been like, I'm not accepting anything, but it took me a while. Like it took me like, shit, like I gotta stand up for myself. This is not how I deserve to be treated. So finally I was able to, I was able to reflect on those red flags and not ignore them as much as I had done in the past. I was a queen of ignoring red flags, especially in my early dating life. Oh my god, like looking back, damn girl, you were accepting like less than the bare minimum. Like I was underwater. I was like underground. It was not even at the ground level. So you start sticking up for yourself, because you remember how it fucking feels to be treated like that by someone, and you don't accept it anymore. You just don't. But you know if you're being treated how you deserve. You know if something is making you feel good and it's fulfilling you, or it's making you crazy. You're checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if this guy texted you back. You're like not sticking up for yourself. You're kind of just accepting the bare minimum. And I found myself in some situations like that when I got back into dating. Thank God I was eventually strong enough to cut it off, because looking back, I'm like, what the hell? Why did I even think I wanted to date that person in the first place? Like, and again, it was, I wasn't healed. I still don't know if I will ever be fully healed from my toxic relationship. I'm just gonna put that out there. I do not feel like I am 100% healed. I think it's something that will always stick with me. I think it's something that will always fuck with me and I'll always remember. But I will say some initial advice as you may start to want to get back into dating and get back out there. Don't rush dating. Don't rush into dating someone new. Like if it just so happens that that's what happens, okay. You know what I mean? Like, cause that does happen for a lot of people. You come out of something shitty, you're not looking for a relationship, and then all of a sudden this person comes along and you're like, oh my God, where the fuck were you? But I think that's the type of thing where you needed to leave that to be led directly into what you deserve, right? But if you can allow yourself that time, that healing time to be alone, to be single, and don't rush into dating. I was not rushing into looking for a relationship. I wasn't looking for a relationship, period. I really wasn't. I was actually thriving so much in my singlehood when I met my current partner. We'll get into that, but I was not looking for anything. But that is, they always say that's when you meet the person. So I don't know, is it true? Also, if you are hanging out with someone, if you like someone and you're like, oh my God, you just get that like, what's the word? When you're like on drugs, your brain is on drugs, but you're not actually. It's like all the dopamine from like being with someone new. It's the best feeling, but also remind yourself to take time to be alone. Take nights off from being that person. You don't need to be with that person every single day and every single night. Try to take time apart, because Oh my gosh, when I tell you, like, that is how I realized being away from Jared after we were only hanging out for a few weeks and I was utterly obsessed with him. When I tell you the way I realized I was in love with him was I took like a 13-day long trip with my family that had already been planned, and I missed him so fucking much. We like would FaceTime every night until the wee hours of the morning, but he wasn't there and I was alone for like 2 weeks, and it made me realize how much I miss him and how much I honestly fell in love with him during that time. Take the time alone because it can honestly make you realize how you feel when you're with that person and you're away from that person. Moving on to the last part of this video, finding happiness and or finding healthy love again. When I realized that I wanted to be in a relationship with someone again, that I liked someone enough that I wanted to date them, I didn't jump the gun like I always have in the past. All my relationships in the past have started off really fucking 80 miles an hour, like bam, just because it's exciting, right? This time I was like, you know what, I like was in a relationship for so long, I really like this guy, but I'm also in no rush to start dating right this second. So I didn't. We hung out a lot, you know, we got to know each other a lot, but I didn't rush it. I looked for red flags. I looked for, you know, is this person truly making me feel how I want to feel and how I would like to be treated in a relationship, you know, because you can't really find that out a week or two of hanging out with someone. I took time for myself. Like I said, I took alone time. I took nights off from seeing this person, even though I really wanted to be with them every second of every day. But taking that alone time and time for yourself, especially in the beginning of a relationship, is so important in my opinion. It's always important to have your alone time and not feel like you need this constant codependency, right? And so keep that in mind too. That was a really like unhealthy trait of my toxic relationship, was how codependent it got and how I just like shut off a lot of people and like didn't talk to anyone about what I was actually feeling. It was like 2 months went by and I knew since like the first few days that I hung out with Jared that I wanted to date him. Like I kind of knew in the back of my mind like we're gonna be together, but I was so confident in that I was like, I don't need to rush it because I know that it's gonna happen and it's right timing. And it was like 2 months of hanging out, and we were hanging out and I just asked him if he wanted to be my boyfriend. I am in the most calm, just like non-confrontational, honest, respectful. We both respect each other a lot, and just I don't want to compare it too much, but when you are in a relationship that is not that high and low emotional roller coaster cycle, at first it can feel actually kind of weird. That is something that a lot of people say. When you're used to the drama, you're used to the fighting every single day, you're used to like having to be so defensive and like almost trying not to like make something come up in a person. At first it can actually feel kind of weird to be with someone who is level-headed, calm, like just, you know, like this person, rather than a like this person that you probably experienced and may have been yourself in a toxic cycle. So at first it can feel a little weird. You're like, what is going on here? But then as you kind of like settle and your nervous system and your body gets used to that, and you're like, oh, this is like how it should be. Oh my gosh, like this is so comforting and this is just so nice. So just know that if you're still in this like healing process, or even if you're still in the toxic relationship, just know this type of relationship is out there. It's waiting for you. You don't need to rush into it. Of course, you will know when you know, and it, you know, it might take a while to find that, but don't settle. Do not settle for someone who still is showing you those red flags, who still is, you know, making you feel shitty. Or, I mean, it's hard. It's easier said than done. It's easier to just accept what is in front of you and accept what's easy and what's there, rather than to really, really do the work, respect yourself enough to not allow that, or to eventually cut that off with someone. And I think that's something that I'm so happy I was able to learn from being able to go through the whole breakup cycle and ending, and actually successfully ending that toxic cycle. Because now I'm like, oh my God, if I did that, I can do anything. You will begin to accept what you truly deserve in love, in in life. Like, I can't even tell you guys, I feel like I entered I leveled up in life, not just like, oh my gosh, from like this breakup, I was able to level up in love. Like, I feel like my life changed in such a positive way. I feel like everything shifted for me once I finally let go of this whole cycle that was holding me back in more than just the romantic sense, okay? Like, emotionally, it was holding me back in my career. It was holding me back with like going deep with my friends and family because I wasn't opening up honestly to people. It was holding me back from going to do things with my friends because I felt controlled by my partner. Like, everything opened up once I finally made that decision. So if you are still in that cycle, if you are still there, or if you're struggling with thinking of going back to the person, just know, like, your life can change so much for the fucking better. You just have to eventually cut that off and let time go by. That is the most, everyone fucking tells you that, but you have to let a good amount of time go by. Like, it took me, like I said, years. To end this video off just on an honest note, like I said before, I do not feel 100% healed from that situation. I don't think I ever will. Maybe when I'm like 80 or something. But I reflect often on what I accepted for myself for so long, and I hurt when I think of her. I hurt when I think of that person and how much I just felt like I couldn't leave. And that's the hardest part and the hardest hurdle to get through. And once you freaking leave, oh my God, like, everything else will come into place. Everything else will show up for you once you decide you respect yourself enough to not accept that person in your life anymore. I will never go back to that feeling. I will never go back to accepting that for myself as what I think I deserve. So please don't accept that for yourself if you are in that situation. I wasn't expecting to get to this level of deepness today, but I'm glad that I allowed myself to, because it's real, it's honest, and I know that it will hopefully hit some of you guys the way that you need to be hit by this information. I worded that really weirdly, but you know what I mean. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a long one, but I hope that you enjoyed this. I would love to make other videos kind of just talking about like one topic in particular and going off about it that you guys might need help with, or stuff that we're going through. So if you made it until the end of this video and you have any ideas for things that maybe you're going through in your life or that could be helpful for me to talk about, I would love to hear your ideas in the comments down below. Let's uplift each other in the comments. Let's be positive and send people love that are going through this cycle right now and that need that encouragement. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you made it until the end and you found it helpful. And I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye.